It's easier to fight you. I'm so glad we're reading this. So you get a clear, crystal clear picture. There's nothing's changed, nothing new under the sun in God's word. Just put it, flesh and blood on it, put it in today's times we live in. I know thy pride, and thy naughtiness of thine heart. For thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. No. David got to see what kind of coward you were with his own eyeballs. Yeah, he got to see your valiant brothers hiding with their valiant king Saul like rabbits in the clefts of the rocks, in the holes of the rocks like rabbits supposed to. Yeah, he got to see it. Little David. And David said, what have I done? Is there not a cause? What are you picking on me for? I'm just here to bring you food and supplies. I just happen to see this giant and wondering why y'all all of you cowering in fear, hiding in the clefts of the rock. What's going on? I mean, what it is. And David said, what have I done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul. And he sent for him. So they said, okay, David, okay, we got one here. Let's go tell Saul. We got somebody willing to go fight the enemy. He's probably going to get squashed like an ant, but oh well. At least we got somebody to go forward. None of us are going to go out there and fight. And David said unto Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with the Philistines. David said, I'll take him on. Let me go. Guys ain't got the cower and fear anymore. I'll take on the enemy. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth. See, people like this that are cowards in the church world, they always find 1,000 excuses for you not to go fight and try to hold you back when you want to go fight, when your heart is right toward God. When you see God, if God before you, who could be against you? You see God is bigger than whatever giant you're standing up against that's in your life. You got these kind of type, you can't do this. What makes you think you can do this? They got a million excuses why you can't do it. Or you aren't educated enough. You haven't had enough theological training to do this. You have been recognized by brother better than you and sister holier than thou. Or you haven't been under the tutelage of Rufus Glitter Teeth and his organization, or Smiley Saul and his organization, or the New Age Balaam and his organization. What gives you this authority to go and fight the enemy? I'm sorry, but when you take the traditional filters off of God's Word is an exciting book, very exciting. It's, as so many of you have discovered through Street Priest Ministries. God's Word is an exciting book. And Saul said to David, thou art not able to go against him. Excuse me, let me get my Saul voice. Thou art not able to go against him, this Philistine, to fight with him, for thou art but a youth. And he a man of war and valor from his youth. He's a killer. David's Goliath is a killer. He's been killing from his youth. He's a trained killer. See, that's one thing. The cowards, they're always well aware of the enemy's background and what the enemy can do and can't do, but they rarely, ever know about the man of God's background and what he can do and what God enabled him to do. Because normally, his record's off the grid. His reputation's underground. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep. And there came a lion. Now David's got to let him know. You want to know something, Saul? I'm going to tell you what I've done. It's my background. This is my resume, my qualifications for this job here. Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went after him, and smote him. I killed him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Hand-to-hand combat with a bear and a lion is my resume. Now, what's yours, Saul? What have you ever? Saul, you ever went hand-to-hand combat with your life in jeopardy, hand-to-hand, and had to either maim or kill somebody? Have you ever done that, Saul? Do you know what it's like to be on the battlefield, Saul? See people die, get killed among you, or rescue people from getting killed. Have you ever been through that, Saul? You ever went to toe-to-toe with a giant or several giants, Saul? Ever done that? No, you don't have that kind of heart, do you, Saul? You're just a rabbit that's been hiding under the skirts of Jesus all your life. And I went out after him and smote him and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be one of them. David said, put him in the same boat as the rest of them. He said, I'm going to kill him like I killed them. David saw God. David saw the Philistine dead before he even got to him. That's a real man of God. That's faith. That's an Action Jackson. See, cowards hide and can't see the outcome because they see the giants and not God. A man of God doesn't look at the obstacle. He looks at God. And he sees it as a finished work already. He's seen that giant dead before he even got to him. It's a true man of faith, a true man of God. Whereas cowards have 1,000 excuses not to go on the battlefield and fight the giant. Like I said, they'd rather fight you. Cowards are that they are. I went out after him, thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said, moreover, the Lord hath delivered me out of the paw of the lion, and out of the paw of the bear. The Lord hath delivered me. The Lord. David seen the Lord. His heart was right with God. He had courage. Nothing wrong with fear. I would say, David, this is David in this psalm. What time I'm afraid, which he was. Obviously, he wouldn't have said it. I will trust in the Lord. It's willpower. To act in spite of fear is courage. You can have fear, but courage still overrides the fear itself. Fear can paralyze you. They were paralyzed. Saul and his army, they were paralyzed. They couldn't move. Fear didn't paralyze. Fear can paralyze you. But courage is to act in spite of the fear, to do what's right. In faith, in this case, we're talking faith. We have a myriad of promises. We have the whole armor of God. God has endowed us with His spirit armor. I just taught on that. The church, get that teaching. He's endowed His church with power. Not to sit in a hammock, a rocking chair, a recliner on a battlefield. This is battlefield earth. And you have an eternal foe that's out to destroy you and drag you to hell with him and his minions. And he works through his minions, flesh and blood. And we are to engage the enemy and push the enemy back, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. David had the heart to resist the enemy incarnate, his diabolical servant, Goliath, and take his head off. Thy servant both slew the lion and the bear, and the uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. And David said, moreover, the Lord hath delivered me out of the paw of the lion, and out of the paw of the bear. He will deliver me out of the hand of the Philistine. And Saul said unto David, go, and the Lord be with thee. Coward, you should be going. You're the king. You represent the people. You cowardly king. David is the king, as King David was always first in the battle. The king is supposed to be the number one person up front leading the charge. I'm so sorry. I have to catch myself and calm myself down. So I always keep it rated G with you guys and don't sleep and slip in the sailor mode. But I always hate cowards. I've always, all my life. Bullies and cowards, same thing. Bullies is a coward in birth. This is a big bully. He's going to fight. 12 to 14 foot bully. And most things about a bully, I'll tell you something about, none of them never been really had people that go up against him. Like I'm sure this guy he's used to picking on people that he assumed is smaller than him. He could easily stomp on and smash out. But every bully I encountered that I laid out, they were surprised because for one, they're not used to getting hit, and they're getting hit hard. They aren't used to it. Because normally a bully gets his way. That's what the idea of being a bully. Bullied his way all his life. People afraid to fight him. So when you have someone with courage and heart to go up against one, and they get the surprise of their life, they get the surprise of their life. And this Goliath is about to get the surprise of it. David said, moreover, the Lord that delivereth me out of the paw of the lion, and I read on. And Saul armed David with his armor, verse 38. And he put on a helmet of brass upon his head. Also, he armed him with a coat of mail. So, he's going to give him his armor, cowardly king. Take his armor off and give it to David. And David girded his sword up on his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. He had not tested the armor. He had not trained with his armor. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these. You can't fight the Lord's battle with Saul's armor. David has to go in the power of God and fight the way God wants him to fight the enemy. He can't fight Saul's way. Saul represents the cowardly church world. Can't fight the enemy their way. Can't use their armor to fight a Goliath. Jesus said you can't put, you can get that sermon I actually taught on old wine, new wine. Get that video. You can't put new wine in old wine skins and vice versa. The old way doesn't work. You have to put new with new. And David girded his sword up on his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off of him, Amen, David. I wouldn't want that cowardly king's armor on me in the first place. I feel it might jinx me or something. And he took his staff in his hand. A staff. Like that right behind me. A staff. And he took his staff. And wouldn't estimate the power of a staff. If you know how to use a staff correctly, and you got some skills, you can do just as much killing with a staff. You can kill a wolf. He's trying to grab a sheep. And he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook. Now David gonna make it rough. Why did David pull? This is me. I'm always the analytical type. Why did he pick a stone that pyramidal shape that had a point at the end of it? Wouldn't that be more of a weapon? You're trying to kill somebody with a stone? 5 is the number of grace. But David is saying this is God's victory. No matter what kind of weapon I use, I could take a paper clip and throw it at a giant, and God will make it. The paper clip will affect the weapon to kill him if he don't so design. And chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag, which he had, even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand. And he drew near to the Philistine. David had an unorthodox way of fighting. I'd say so. Here this guy coming with a staff, picture like the staff behind me. Picture at me coming. I got a sling. You guys know what a sling look like. And I got this bag of rocks. And I'm coming to fight a man that's fully armed to the teeth. Looking like a knight. A man, picture a knight. And he got a armor bear in front of him with a giant shield. And then nothing but a slit of the eyeballs between for me to get at. This man is armed to the teeth, fully covered. Whole body parts protected. And David girded his, let me see, verse 40. And he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in a shepherd bag which he had, even a scrip, and his sling was in his hand. And he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David. And the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy, and of fair countenance. Like I said, he looked like a little Irishman. And the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog? Are you come to insult me? I'm a warrior. I'm a killer. I'm a killer. This how you insult me? You coming with sticks, man? And stones? You gonna throw stones? You gonna throw rocks at me? Are you aware of my resume? I am the champion of the Philistines. This is how you come. You don't have no respect for me as a warrior, as a killer? Really? And when David looked about, and when the Philistine looked about and saw David, verse 42, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy, and of fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves? You coming with me with sticks, man? This is insulting. And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. See, the enemy, always cocky and arrogant. And he's letting you know, this is a religious battle here. David's God, the living God of Israel, this man, and his heathen God, his ancient occultic God, the Philistines. It's a religious battle as well. As a national battle. See, sometimes nations and their gods and their false gods, and that's what the church world done lost. That David said, I'm representing the living God of Israel. Well, what's the church supposed to be representing? You rabbits that's hiding in the clefts of the rocks and letting others fight your battle. Like I said and stated in many videos, men of valor that aren't even claim religion. And you're supposed to be the restraining force for the Antichrist to push him back. Government, world dominating government. And you see it in them moving in and all around you as you have your head like an ostrich buried in the sand, oblivious to your surroundings, like these cowards here. If it wasn't for David, Philistines would have won. And God would have let them win. One man stood up. It's always one man. Normally in the Bible. The majority is always wrong. And the majority, just like David encountered, usually encounters resistance from the so-called religious community of his day. It happened to be Saul and his bunch of that day. And his brothers, all cowering in fear. See, cowards love to have an excuse for their cowardice. Love to. And Philistine said unto David, I've read that. Verse 44, the Philistine said unto David, come to me, and I will give thy flesh to the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field. This giant is beating his chest. Then said David to the Philistine, thou comest me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts. David said, your confidence is in your weaponry. So you got evil dictators, men of power. They're like, you got the dark forces that rule this world. Their God is Mammon. And they believe that money can buy and pay for anything they want. Could have countries, nations. They buy countries, nations. Buy souls and make slaves out of them. Some evil tyrants, dictators, warlords, modern day warlords, potentates. Their confidence is in their armaments too, as well. Tanks and missiles, and et cetera, et cetera. But David, his confidence was in the living God, creator of heaven and earth, everything in it. And that's who he's coming in the name of. Not in the name of his skill set that he has, or the weaponry that he has, or what he knows and don't know. He said, I'm coming to you in the name of the Lord. I'm coming up against you in the name of the Lord. Then David said to the Philistine, thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, Jehovah Sabaoth. When you invoke that name, that's God of everything, God of all creation. That's the God that can use anything, use the insect kingdom like he did and read the plagues of Egypt. How God used all the elements and insects and everything else. That is beckoning call, including Mr. Lucifer and his demons are subject to him as well, as you can read about in Job. They answer to him. He's Lord of hosts, Jehovah Sabaoth, Lord of everything. Obviously, the Bible said clearly, I sent Saul a demon. The Lord said, I sent Saul a demon. They have that. If God send you a demon, yes, sir. The demon goes and possesses you. Lord of hosts. The God of the armies of Israel whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into my hand, and I will smite thee and take thy head from thee. He said, what you said you're going to do to me, I'm going to do to you, pal. And take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air. The buzzards are going to eat you. You're going to be buzzard bait, buzzard food. And the wild beasts of the earth. This is a real man of God. I'm so glad that you and I are sitting here reading. That's why I read this book, because most don't. What a real man of God looks like. And what a coward looks like in the Bible. So you know the difference. And the wild beasts of the earth, Jesus said, all that came before you were hirelings. I taught on that. Get the video, The Good Shepherd. What a hireling is. He said, I'm the good shepherd. The good shepherd will defend his sheep and lay his life down for his sheep. This is David. He's the good shepherd. As juxtaposed to the cowardly king Saul, was a hireling. And all his assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to pass, when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hastened and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. Didn't hesitate. David took off running. See, these cowards, the coward that represents the church world, they go in reverse. They put their head in the sand like an ostrich. But David, like an eagle, swooped on him. David didn't hesitate. David took off running toward him. David was anxious to kill this bully. And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone, and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead. God empowered David through the Holy Spirit with such power that this stone, a smooth stone, not a jagged one, went through this man's forehead. That the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell up on his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine, and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and took up on the Philistine. David wasn't taking no chances. So I'm going to make sure this sucker's dead. Therefore David ran and stood up on the Philistine. That's another problem with the church. Even those, you've studied the church age. The church is supposed to be a resistance force to hold back the spirit of the Antichrist. The Antichrist has gained ground in every area you want to name. And then when the church would resist through revivals and certain leaders, the reformers that popped up, certain periods, they would give that ground right back. They would never finish the job. David finished the job. He made sure this dire giant was going to rise to hurt, harm, and hurt anybody again. Therefore David ran and stood up on the Philistine, and took his sword and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. Here's your fearless leader right here. He ran around with that head. God sent us some Davids in today's modern church world, please. Therefore David ran and stood up on the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head. Say that again. David was an Action Jackson. He wasn't about talk. And cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. See? Take out the chief bully, the rest run. They scatter. I've experienced that in my life. Go for the biggest bull. If you got to fight more than one person, take the biggest out first. And watch the rest run. They don't want none of that. In my earlier years, learned that lesson early. Make an example of one bully. The rest, you don't have to worry. You take the heart from him instead of the other way around. And the men, they say, if this little guy with some rocks and a stick took out our champion, obviously, and they believe God versus God. Their God is bigger than ours. The living God of Israel, the true God that made heaven and earth, is more real than our occultic, fake, satanic version of Baal and Ashtoreth and Talmud. The fake satanic trinity. And the men of Israel and of Judah rose and shouted and pursued the Philistines until they came to the valley. Now we're going to skip all this. Saul, as usual, archetype of once the brave men go out and do their fighting for him. Here they want to come and join in the picture, get praise and accolades. No different. And when our men of war went out, some of them was arguing and throwing stones at them for doing it. They came home after the victory, and then all of a sudden, you had those chaplains that was out on the battlefield with just a Bible. And then you had these gutless cowards that was against the war and against this when Hitler was rising. They're always against. Bible's a war book. But that's what we're reading about, this war right here. There's still a war. The Bible says a time of war and time for peace. They don't read that part. Anyway, we'll skip down to verse, go to 18:7. Just want to throw this in. And the women answered one another and played. Now, Saul had made him captain of the guard, brought David up under him, gave him his daughter Milcah like he said he would. And he wants to bring him into the family now. See, once a man of God proves himself, then the church world want to accept you after you done won enough battles through the power of God, and they got their force to recognize you at that point. David had killed his 10,000s. So here's Saul. And the woman answered one another as they played and said, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Saul was very wroth. The saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed David 10,000s, and to me they have described 1,000. The women were singing that David song. It's innate for women to love warriors. And